At midday in the Masai Mara Reserve, the sun casts a harsh, white glow, making the low-lying green grasslands interspersed with dry land appear motionless. Daniel Hartman and Park Ranger Samuel N. George have just completed a field trip documenting animal tracks across their familiar grasslands. After hours of traveling, they both decided to stop under a large acacia tree to rest and have a quick lunch. The camera-laden backpack was laid down on the ground, next to a long lens covered in savanna dust. Daniel and Samuel talked while eating about how the recent severe dry seasons had affected young game animals. A gentle breeze rustled the acacia leaves, creating a rhythmic sound that quickly lulled people into a false sense of security. After finishing his meal, Daniel lay down on the ground, placing his wide-brimmed cloth hat over his face. Samuel was also lying not far away, his hand on his chest, his gun at his side, a habitual part of his profession. The space seemed to have fallen into a midday nap, with only the occasional chirping of insects breaking the silence. Daniel closed his eyes quickly, his body completely relaxed amidst the vastness of nature. Samuel kept his eyes open for a while before falling asleep. Neither of them knew that this peace would only last for a few more short minutes. For from the edge of the low grass, two tiny creatures were silently approaching. From the sparse grass behind the acacia tree, two skinny black leopard cubs cautiously emerged. Their dark black fur absorbs the white sunlight, making their small bodies appear even more slender. They paused for a few seconds, raising their heads to take deep breaths of the strange smell of humans and food. The bag of food placed next to the backpack quickly attracted the attention of the two hungry leopard cubs. They painstakingly sniffed every corner of the bag, hoping to find something left over. There was no smell of meat, no smell of milk, only the empty box and the smell of dry plastic. The two leopards looked at each other, emitting a very soft sound, almost a sigh. They continued to advance, getting closer and closer to the two bodies lying motionless on the ground. Their survival instinct drives them to approach potential sources of sustenance, despite vague fears. A leopard placed its front paw on Daniel's coat, cautiously examining it. The other one followed, its eyes wide with more curiosity than aggression. Daniel was still fast asleep, completely unaware that something was touching him. At that moment, the boundary between humanity and nature became strangely fragile. The two black panther cubs climbed right onto Daniel's stomach, their tiny claws gripping the dusty coat. They bent down and sniffed his chest, as if searching for the familiar scent of milk or food. The strange, heavy feeling made Daniel stir slightly in his restless afternoon nap. Just a second later, he jolted his eyes open and screamed loudly in panic. The cloth hat flew to one side, revealing a face pale with surprise. The two leopard cubs jumped back in surprise, their ears perked up in a defensive reflex. Samuel sprang to his feet instantly, his hand instinctively gripping his gun, a skill deeply ingrained in his profession. He stood in front of Daniel, his eyes scanning the wide expanse of grass. Two people and two tiny creatures faced each other in a moment of extreme tension. There was no roar, no sign of attack, only the sound of hurried breathing. Daniel took a few steps back, his heart still pounding with fear that hadn't yet subsided. Samuel held the gun low, not pointing it directly, because he sensed something was amiss. That silence signaled that this was no ordinary dangerous encounter. Samuel turned around, carefully observing his surroundings, searching for the figure of a mother leopard lurking nearby. But the Masai Mara grassland stretched out vast and empty, with no suspicious movement whatsoever. The two leopard cubs stood close together, their bodies trembling slightly from hunger and fear. Their eyes didn't show any aggression, only weariness and an instinctive plea for help. Daniel gradually calmed down, realizing these were just two exhausted creatures. He slowly knelt down, maintaining a safe distance and lowering his voice. Daniel took the remaining bottle of water and slowly opened the cap so as not to startle them. A leopard cub licks up its first drops of water, its tongue trembling with thirst. The other one immediately came forward and joined in the drink, its appetite clearly unconcealed. Samuel lowered his gun completely, knowing that the situation had changed. Fear has vanished, replaced by sorrow for the two tiny lives. Daniel looked at Samuel. Both understood that something very wrong had happened. The initial peace has now turned into a heavy question. Samuel pulled out his satellite phone and sent an urgent report to the Masai Mara Ranger Center. He described in detail the condition of the 2 black panther cubs, the location where they were found, and the absence of their mother. The Rapid Response Center prioritizes searching for the mother leopard within the nearest radius. If they cannot be found, the 2 leopard cubs must be brought back to the station for safety. Daniel and Samuel gently calmed the 2 leopards, avoiding any sudden movements. The transport cage was taken out of the vehicle and placed low to the ground. Samuel used his experience to guide the 2 leopards into the cage without forcing them. After a few minutes of hesitation, their instinct to find a safe place led them inside. The cage door closed gently, without making a loud noise. The pickup truck started up and rolled slowly along the savanna dirt road. Daniel looked back at the acacia tree where they had just had lunch, and it felt like everything had changed. Samuel focused on driving, preparing for the difficult search ahead. They both hoped that miracles still existed somewhere beyond the meadow. They narrowed their search to a 2-kilometer radius around where the 2 leopard cubs were spotted. Along the edge of a small lake, Samuel discovered a dark figure lying motionless. As they got closer, both were stunned to realize it was a fully grown female black leopard. Its body bore numerous deep wounds, clear signs of a confrontation with a wild buffalo. There's no doubt about it, that's the mother of the 2 leopard cubs. Daniel stood motionless, camera in hand, but unable to raise it to take a picture. Samuel bowed his head, observing a few seconds of silence to honor the fallen life. There was no anger, only the familiar sadness of those who live alongside the wilderness. The 2 returned to the car, carrying with them the heavy, unchangeable truth. The vehicle rolled towards the ranger station in prolonged silence. The wind blew harder, swirling dust behind them as if to conceal the traces of the tragedy. Daniel understood that nature isn't cruel, it simply operates according to harsh laws. And from this moment, human responsibility became clearly defined. At the Masai Mara rescue station, the 2 black leopard cubs were carefully examined by a veterinarian. The results showed they were perfectly healthy, only severely exhausted from prolonged starvation. They are placed in semi-wild enclosures that simulate their natural environment safely. Every day, the rangers take turns caring for the animals, feeding them the correct rations, and monitoring their behavior. Daniel frequently returns to the station, documenting each stage of recovery with his familiar lens. The 2 leopards gradually grew stronger, their eyes becoming more alert and full of curiosity. Samuel and his teammates began a survival training program that adheres to conservation standards. They teach leopard cubs to stalk prey, recognize danger, and react to avoid enemies. All training sessions maintain distance, avoiding reliance on human interaction. As time passed, the 2 leopard cubs grew quickly in the quiet solitude of the savanna. They will be raised for another 10 months before they are eligible to be released back into the wild. Daniel knew that he was merely the record teller of the story, not the owner of it. And at the age of 1 year, those 2 creatures will return to the meadow, carrying with them the memory of a strange encounter.